I don't shake hands with your kind. Richard Sterling's words cut through the 42nd floor conference room like a blade. His gray eyes swept over Adrienne Carter's extended brown hand, as if examining filth on his Italian shoes. The livestream cameras captured everything. 200 investors watching, the counter climbing, 1.3 million viewers. Adrienne's hand remained steady. I'm offering you a professional handshake, Mr. Sterling, to seal a $3.2 billion merger. And I'm declining. Sterling turned to his white executives, smirking. We have standards at Apex Corporation, cultural standards. Whispers rippled through the room. A board member muttered, She should know her place. Another laughed. What did she expect? The Bloomberg terminal behind them flashed red numbers. Nobody noticed. Adrienne slowly lowered her hand. No tears, no rage, just a smile cold enough to freeze hell. You're absolutely right about standards, Mr. Sterling. She touched the black fist pin on her lapel. Fortunately, I have mine. Her phone buzzed. 67 missed calls. She turned toward the door. Gentlemen, check page 247 of your contracts. You have 4 hours. The war had begun. 48 hours before the handshake that would destroy an empire, Adrienne Carter stood before her bathroom mirror at 4:47 a.m. The scar on her left temple, a reminder from a brick thrown through her father's shop window in 1992, throbbed with phantom pain. They'll never see you coming, she whispered to her reflection. The woman staring back wasn't just the founder of Catalyst Capital. She was the daughter of Jerome Carter, a brilliant engineer fired from Apex Corporation 23 years ago. We don't need your kind making decisions here, they'd told him. 3 months later, he died of a heart attack. Adrienne was 19. Now, at 42, she controlled the financial arteries of half of Wall Street. Meanwhile, across Manhattan in his penthouse office, Richard Sterling celebrated his upcoming triumph. The acquisition of Catalyst Capital would make Apex the largest financial conglomerate in American history. The champagne cost more than most Americans' monthly salary. Sir, the merger documents. His CFO, William Hayes, placed a red folder on the mahogany desk. The folder bore a seal, emergency clauses. Sterling waved it away without reading. Standard bullshit. Have legal handle it. But, sir, Clause 8 specifically states, I said handle it. Sterling's voice could freeze blood. That woman should be grateful we're even allowing her a seat at the table. What Sterling didn't know, what would cost him everything, was that Adrienne had spent 3 years orchestrating this moment. Through shell companies, anonymous trades, and brilliantly disguised acquisitions, she didn't just own shares in Apex. She owned 67% of their debt. The conference room had been Sterling's choice. Neutral ground, he'd called it, though everyone knew Pierce Tower was his kingdom. The live stream was Adrienne's suggestion. Transparency for our investors, she'd said. Sterling had laughed. Let them watch me build an empire. Marcus Johnson, Adrienne's CFO and legal counsel, reviewed the numbers one final time in their car. Once you trigger Clause 8, there's no going back. The entire $3.2 billion will be withdrawn in minutes. How long until Apex collapses? 4 hours, maybe less. Adrienne touched the pin on her lapel, the same design her father wore to every job interview after Apex. Some things are worth more than money, Marcus. Elena Rodriguez, a financial journalist who'd been investigating Sterling for 2 years, sat in the press section with her camera ready. She'd received an anonymous tip. Watch the handshake. As a small shareholder in Apex, a detail she'd hidden from her editors, she had skin in this game. The previous week, Sterling had rejected his 12th black executive candidate in 3 years. Not the right fit, he'd said, using the same phrase each time. The salary data Elena had uncovered showed minority employees at Apex earned 40% less than their white counterparts for identical positions. But the most damning evidence lay in Clause 8, buried on page 247 of the merger agreement. The clause Adrienne's team had inserted 3 years ago when Apex first approached them for preliminary funding. Any act of discrimination verified through public documentation triggers immediate repayment of all debts. Sterling's legal team had missed it, or perhaps they'd never imagined someone would dare invoke it. The morning of the meeting, Adrienne's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "They know who you are. Be careful." She deleted it and straightened her pin. In the elevator rising to the 42nd floor, she thought of her father's words. "Power isn't about being in the room, baby girl. It's about owning the building." Today, she owned something better. She owned their future. The elevator doors opened. Sterling stood at the far end of the hall, surrounded by his white male executives, not a single face of color among them. "Miss Carter," he called out, deliberately mispronouncing her name. "Ready to make history?" She smiled, cold as winter dawn. "More than you know." The red folder waited on the conference table, unopened. 60 minutes until detonation. The conference room fell silent as Adrienne entered. 200 pairs of eyes watched through screens across the globe. Investors in Tokyo, London, Dubai. The live stream counter showed 1.3 million viewers and climbing. Sterling stood at the head of the polished table, his silver hair catching the morning light like a crown. "Gentlemen," he announced, pointedly excluding Adrienne, "today we make Apex untouchable." The insult landed like a slap. Marcus Johnson's jaw tightened. Elena Rodriguez's camera captured everything. Adrienne took her designated seat, notably smaller than the others, positioned where the sun would glare in her eyes. She'd expected this. Every microaggression had been calculated, documented. "Before we begin," Sterling continued, his voice dripping superiority, "let's acknowledge our diverse participant." The way he said diverse made it sound like disease. Nervous laughter rippled through Sterling's team. The live stream chat exploded. "Perhaps Ms. Carter would like to say something?" Sterling's smile was pure condescension. About how grateful she is for this opportunity? Adrienne stood slowly, her voice carried like steel wrapped in silk. "I'm grateful for many things, Mr. Sterling. Today, most of all." How touching. Sterling turned to his executives. "You see, they can learn professionalism when properly motivated." The "they" hung in the air like poison gas. Marcus started to rise. Adrienne's hand on his shoulder stopped him. Not yet. The contract signing began. Each page was displayed on the screen behind them, the Bloomberg terminal alternating between the merger details and Apex's soaring stock price, up 12% since opening bell. "Now," Sterling announced, "let's seal this deal properly, like gentlemen." He moved around the table, shaking hands with each executive, white hand to white hand, firm grips, respectful nods. The camera tracked his progress. He reached Adrienne. She stood, extending her hand. Professional, dignified. The black fist pin on her lapel caught the light. Sterling looked at her hand as if she'd offered him garbage. His eyes traveled from her brown fingers to her face, then past her to the white executive behind her. "I don't shake hands with people who don't share our values," he said, loud enough for every microphone to catch. "We have standards at Apex, cultural standards." The live stream viewer count hit 2.8 million. The chat became a waterfall of rage. Adrienne kept her hand extended. "I'm offering you a handshake, Mr. Sterling, in front of 200 investors, in front of the world. And I'm declining." His voice turned ice. "I don't care how much money you have. You people always think you can buy your way into real society. But breeding matters. Background matters. Some of us built this country. Others," he glanced at her pin, "merely complain about it." William Hayes, Sterling's CFO, went pale. "Sir, perhaps—" "Quiet, William. It's time someone said what we're all thinking." Sterling faced the camera. "Apex Corporation has thrived for 60 years because we maintain excellence. We don't lower our standards for quotas or political correctness. The room temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. Elena Rodriguez zoomed in on Adrienne's face. No tears, no rage, just a smile cold enough to freeze hell. "You're absolutely right, Mr. Sterling," Adrienne said. "Standards do matter." She lowered her hand slowly, deliberately. The gesture somehow made Sterling's rejection look like what it was: small, petty, pathetic. 200 million people are now watching this live stream, she continued, checking her phone. "That's quite an audience for a business announcement." Sterling laughed. "Let them watch. They'll see what real power looks like." Adrienne gathered her papers. "Yes, they will." She walked toward the door, each step measured. At the threshold, she paused. "Gentlemen, I suggest you check your contracts. Page 247, Clause 8. She glanced at her watch. "You have 4 hours." The door closed behind her with a whisper. Sterling's phone began to ring, then Williams', then every phone in the room. The Bloomberg terminal behind them flashed red. Apex stock had begun to fall. Adrienne's heels echoed through the marble hallway like a countdown. Behind the conference room's glass walls, she could see Sterling still laughing with his executives, oblivious to the financial guillotine about to drop. The women's restroom on the 42nd floor was empty, as she'd arranged. Marcus stood guard outside. She had 90 seconds before anyone would notice her absence. Her phone showed 127 missed calls now, all from Apex board members who'd just realized what was happening. She dialed a number memorized but never saved. It answered on the first ring. "Phoenix Protocol?" The voice belonged to David, her secret weapon, the forensic accountant who'd spent 3 years mapping every Apex transaction. "Execute Clause 8. All of it. Every single penny of the $3.2 billion. The discrimination violation is documented. 200 million witnesses." She could hear Sterling's voice still booming through the walls. "He just committed corporate suicide on live stream. Transfer begins in 60 seconds. Adrienne, once I hit enter, Apex has 4 hours, less if the market panics." They have less than that. The footage is already viral. Through the mirror, she saw her father's eyes looking back at her. Jerome Carter had died believing the system couldn't be beaten. Today, she'd prove him wrong. "Do it!" The sound of David's fingers on the keyboard was like machine gun fire. "Initiated. $3.2 billion withdrawing from Apex accounts. Their CFO will see it in 3, 2... A scream erupted from the conference room. Not Sterling. William Hayes, watching his screens turn red. Adrienne applied fresh lipstick, steady as a surgeon. The shade was called Revenge Red. How appropriate. Marcus knocked twice, their signal. "Sterling's looking for you." "Let him look." She opened her secure laptop, watching the dominoes begin to fall. First, the automatic trading algorithms detected the massive withdrawal, then the hedge funds started pulling out, then the institutional investors. Each withdrawal triggered the next, a perfect cascade of financial destruction. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elena Rodriguez. "Just posted the video. Title, Billionaire CEO Refuses to Shake Black Woman's Hand. You won't believe what happens next." 1 million views in 40 seconds. Another message, this from a number she recognized. Senator James Thompson, chair of the Banking Committee. "Ms. Carter, I believe we should discuss new regulations regarding discrimination in financial institutions. Please call at your convenience." Through the bathroom door, she heard running footsteps, shouting, the beautiful chaos of an empire crumbling. She made one more call, this one to the Wall Street Journal. "Ms. Carter?" The editor's voice was eager. "We're watching the live stream. Care to comment?" "In 15 minutes, I'll be holding a press conference in the Pierce Tower lobby. You'll want to be there." "Can you give us a preview?" "Let's just say Mr. Sterling is about to learn that discrimination has a price. Exactly $3.2 billion. She ended the call and opened the door. Marcus stood there, his face a mixture of concern and admiration. They're in full panic mode. Sterling just fired William for not catching Clause 8. William's not the one who should be worried. They walked back toward the conference room. Through the glass, she could see Sterling jabbing his finger at a computer screen, his face purple with rage. His executives stood frozen, watching their net worth evaporate in real time. The Bloomberg terminal now showed Apex down 34% in 12 minutes. Elena Rodriguez intercepted them in the hallway. "Miss Carter, a quick word?" "Not yet, but keep that camera rolling." Adrienne paused at the conference room door, her hand on the handle. Inside, Sterling was screaming into his phone. "I don't care what the contract says. Stop the transfer. Call the SEC. Call the FBI. Call someone." She knocked twice, then entered. The room fell silent. Every face turned to her, some terrified, some furious, all defeated. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice calm as a funeral prayer, "shall we discuss new terms?" Sterling's hand was shaking now. She wondered if he'd offer to shake hers. Sterling's office erupted into chaos like a bomb had detonated. Papers flew, monitors flickered red. Grown men in $10,000 suits ran like their lives depended on it, because their fortunes did. "Get me the head of J.P. Morgan!" Sterling roared, his voice cracking. "Get me the Fed! Get me anyone!" William Hayes, despite being fired 3 minutes ago, remained at his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Sir, the withdrawal is legitimate. Clause 8 is ironclad. We signed it. You signed it. That was 3 years ago." "Legal contracts don't expire, Mr. Sterling." The Bloomberg terminal behind them looked like a heart monitor flatlining. Apex Corporation, down 47% in 47 minutes. The number felt poetic. In the corner, Elena Rodriguez kept her camera rolling, broadcasting the meltdown live to 4 million viewers. The chat scrolled so fast it looked like static. "Karma! This is what racism costs. Sterling deserves prison." Meanwhile, 3 floors below, Adrienne sat in a borrowed office, watching 6 monitors simultaneously. Each showed a different news channel. CNN. Breaking: Apex Corporation in freefall. CNBC. Largest single-day corporate collapse in history. Fox Business. Black female CEO destroys Wall Street giant. Marcus paced behind her, phone pressed to each ear. "Yes, Senator. Ms. Carter will testify. Yes, the evidence is documented. Yes, we have 3 years of discrimination records." On monitor 4, Adrienne watched Sterling's employees, particularly the black and brown ones he'd overlooked, underpaid and humiliated. They stood in clusters, some crying, not from sadness but from vindication. One woman, a janitor Sterling had once called the help in front of Japanese investors, was hugging a security guard. "They knew," the janitor whispered to her colleague, not knowing Elena's secondary camera was recording. "They all knew what he was, and someone finally made him pay." Back in Sterling's office, the war room had devolved into a circular firing squad. "You told me to ignore the contract details," Sterling screamed at his legal chief. "You said you didn't have time for technical bullshit," the lawyer shot back. "Sir," William interrupted, laptop screen glowing with doom. "It's worse than just the $3.2 billion. Without that capital, we can't cover our positions in Singapore, or London, or... How long? Until total collapse? 3 hours. Maybe less if word reaches Tokyo before markets close." Sterling's phone rang. The caller ID made everyone freeze. "Board of Directors." He answered on speaker. The voice of Charlotte Morrison, lead board member, filled the room like ice water. "Richard, you're fired. Effective immediately. Security is on their way up." "You can't. I built this company. You destroyed this company in front of the entire world because you couldn't shake a black woman's hand." The line went dead. Sterling grabbed a crystal paperweight, an award for business leadership excellence, and hurled it at the wall. It shattered like his empire. 5 floors below, David sat in a secure room with 12 lawyers and twice as many computer screens. Each one showed a different Apex account hemorrhaging money. Phase 2? He asked Adrienne through their encrypted connection. Not yet. Let them think they might survive. Hope makes the fall harder. She pulled up a file on her tablet. 3 years of emails between Sterling and his executives. The word "those people" appeared 847 times. Urban used as a slur, 312 times. Cultural fit as code for white only, 1,263 times. But the crown jewel was a video from 5 years ago. Sterling at a private club, 3 whiskeys deep, laughing with other CEOs. The day I shake a Natcher's hand is the day I retire. Elena Rodriguez had sent it to her an hour ago. From an anonymous source, Elena had said, though they both knew it was Sterling's own son, disgusted by his father's legacy. Adrienne's phone buzzed, an unknown number, but she recognized the extension, Federal Prosecutor's Office. Miss Carter, this is District Attorney Sarah Mitchell. We'd like to discuss criminal charges against Mr. Sterling. Fraud, discrimination, civil rights violations. I have everything you need, Ms. Mitchell. Can you come to our office? I'll send my lawyers. I have a press conference in 20 minutes. She stood, smoothing her dress. The black fist pin caught the light. Her father had worn one just like it to every job interview after Apex fired him. Never forget who you are, he'd said, and never let them forget either. In the reflection of the window, she saw Sterling's office above. He was on his knees now, begging someone on the phone. Probably his Swiss bank, trying to liquidate personal assets to save face. He didn't understand yet. This wasn't about money anymore. Marcus entered, holding a folder. The other 12 companies with documented discrimination issues are watching. Their stocks are all dropping. The Adrienne effect, they're calling it. Good. Fear is a better teacher than conscience. Sterling's trying to reach you. 15 calls. She looked at the caller ID lighting up her phone again. Richard Sterling. The man who'd refused her handshake, now desperate for her ear. Let him call. Through the window, she watched the Apex logo being removed from the building across the street. Workers in hard hats, mostly black and brown men, dismantling the sign letter by letter. The Bloomberg terminal flashed a new alert. Apex Corporation trading suspended. Federal investigation launched. In 2 hours and 36 minutes, Sterling had gone from king to criminal. The red folder, the one with Clause 8, lay open on the conference table above. Someone had finally read page 247. Someone had finally understood. Too late. Miss Carter, Marcus said softly, it's time. She nodded, picking up her briefcase. Inside was everything, the contracts, the evidence, the 3 years of patient planning. How do I look? She asked. Like justice, Marcus replied. They walked to the elevator. Behind them, Sterling's scream echoed through the halls. This isn't over. I'll sue everyone. The elevator doors closed on his rage. Adrienne smiled. It was absolutely over. She thought about her father, his heart attack at 51, the rejection letters, the dreams deferred and destroyed. This is for you, Dad, she whispered. The elevator descended toward the lobby, toward the waiting press, toward history. Above them, Apex Corporation had 2 hours and 12 minutes left to exist. The Apex legal team's emergency conference room looked like a crime scene. Papers scattered across mahogany tables, law books pulled from shelves, 7 lawyers hunting for a loophole that didn't exist. Page 247, whispered Thomas Brennan, senior legal counsel, his voice hollow. How did we miss page 247? The contract lay open before them. Clause 8 seemed to pulse on the page like a living thing. Any act of discrimination based on race, gender, religion, or national origin, when documented publicly, triggers immediate acceleration of all debt obligations. Sterling signed this himself, another lawyer said. Look, his signature. Date stamped 3 years ago. William Hayes, though fired, had stayed to watch the apocalypse. He pulled up the video timestamp. The handshake refusal happened at 9:47 a.m. The withdrawal started at 9:52 a.m. 5 minutes. She gave him 5 minutes of mercy. Mercy? Brennan laughed bitterly. This was an execution. Elena Rodriguez's live stream played on repeat on one screen. 200 million views now. The moment of refusal had become the most watched business video in history. Sterling's words, "I don't shake hands with people who don't share our values," had been remixed, memed, and turned into a battle cry. But the live stream wasn't the only evidence. Marcus Johnson entered the room without knocking, wheeling in a cart of bankers' boxes. "Gentlemen, Ms. Carter asked me to deliver these." Full transparency. What is this? Every email, every memo, every recorded meeting from the past 5 years, all legally obtained during due diligence. Marcus smiled coldly. "You did grant us full access to company records." Brennan opened the first box. His face went white. Email from Sterling to HR dated 2 years ago. "Find a reason to fire Keisha Williams. I don't care if you have to make one up. I want her gone." Memo to executives. "No more diversity hires. I don't care what legal says. Make excuses." Recording transcript from a board meeting. "The only color I want to see in management is white." Jesus Christ, Brennan muttered. He documented his own crimes. Williams' laptop pinged. New file incoming. Source unknown. It was a video. That video. Sterling at the country club, drunk, laughing. The N-word falling from his lips like poison. 5 years old, but crystal clear. "Who sent this?" William asked. Marcus shrugged. "Does it matter? It's his voice, his face, his hate." In her makeshift office, Adrienne watched them discover each piece of evidence. David had choreographed this perfectly. Each revelation timed to hit just as they thought things couldn't get worse. "Now?" David asked. "Now." He hit enter. The final bomb detonated. Every Apex employee's computer screen displayed the same message. "Confidential. Sterling Enterprises Discrimination Settlement Fund." A list of names followed. 43 former employees, all minorities, all paid to stay quiet about discrimination. Total settlements, $67 million. But Sterling had made one mistake. He'd paid them from Apex corporate accounts, not personal funds. Shareholder money used to hide civil rights violations. That was fraud. Sterling burst into the legal conference room, his face twisted with rage and fear. "Tell me you found something. Anything!" Brennan stood slowly. "Richard, you need to leave the building. Now, before the FBI arrives." The FBI? Fraud, wire fraud, civil rights violations, criminal conspiracy. Brennan's voice was funeral quiet. "You documented everything. You signed everything. You're going to prison." Sterling grabbed the contract, ripping through pages until he found Clause 8. His hands shook as he read it. Once, twice, 3 times. "This can't be legal. Contracts signed under false pretenses." "What false pretense?" Marcus interrupted. "Ms. Carter told you exactly who she was, a black woman CEO. You just never bothered to respect her enough to read what you were signing." William's laptop flashed new alerts. "Sir, the Tokyo market's just opened. Apex subsidiaries in Japan are being delisted. Singapore's frozen our assets. London's called in all loans." Sterling collapsed into a chair, the contract still clutched in his hands. The signature line mocked him. His own name, his own arrogance, his own destruction. Elena Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, camera rolling. "Mr. Sterling, any comment for the millions watching?" He looked up at her, then at the camera, then at his signature. For the first time in his life, Richard Sterling had nothing to say. The smoking gun wasn't hidden. It was his own hand, holding the pen. The Pierce Tower lobby transformed into a coliseum. 300 journalists, 50 cameras. Every major network. The marble floors reflected TV lights like stars, and at the center stood Adrienne Carter, calm as a Madonna in a hurricane. Sterling burst through the stairwell door. The elevators had been mysteriously shut down. His tie hung loose. Sweat stained his $5,000 shirt. His security team tried to stop him, but he shoved past them, storming toward Adrienne. "You set me up!" Every camera swiveled, the confrontation the world had been waiting for. Adrienne turned slowly, deliberately. The black fistpin on her lapel caught the light like a beacon. "I gave you every opportunity to be a decent human being, Mr. Sterling. You chose this. You manipulated the contracts. I presented a standard discrimination clause. Your lawyers approved it. You signed it." Her voice carried perfectly, each word a nail in his coffin. "Just like you signed off on firing 43 minority employees. Just like you signed those settlement checks to keep them quiet." The crowd gasped. The FBI investigation hadn't been announced yet. She'd just broken the news. Sterling's face went from red to purple. "You lying—" "Careful, Mr. Sterling." Marcus stepped forward, tablet in hand. "Everything you say is being recorded, again." Elena Rodriguez pushed through the crowd. "Mr. Sterling, is it true you've lost $3.2 billion in under 3 hours?" No comment. "Is it true you used the N-word in a recorded conversation?" "That's taken out of context." "Is it true you refused to shake Miss Carter's hand because she's black?" "I refuse to shake hands with criminals." The lobby fell silent. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Adrienne smiled. It was winter cold and twice as beautiful. "Criminal? Let me tell you about criminals, Mr. Sterling. Criminals steal wages from minority employees. Criminals violate civil rights. Criminals build empires on the backs of people they won't even acknowledge as human." She pulled out her phone, projecting an image onto the wall behind her. Sterling's country club video began to play. His voice echoed through the marble halls. "The day I shake a nen, Anders' hand is the day I retire." "Well, Mr. Sterling," Adrienne said as the video ended, "today's your retirement party." Sterling lunged forward. Security caught him inches from Adrienne. She didn't even flinch. "I'll destroy you! I'll sue you into poverty!" "With what money?" She held up her phone, showing Apex's stock price, down 78%. "With what lawyers?" "They've all quit." "With what company?" "It no longer exists." District Attorney Sarah Mitchell entered the lobby, flanked by federal agents. "Richard Sterling, you're under arrest for wire fraud, criminal conspiracy, and civil rights violations." As the handcuffs clicked around Sterling's wrists, Adrienne spoke to the cameras. "For 23 years, I've watched men like Richard Sterling destroy families like mine. My father died believing the system was rigged against us. He was right. It was rigged." She paused, letting the words sink in. "So I bought the system." A reporter shouted, "Ms. Carter, what happens to Apex's 5,000 employees?" "Catalyst Capital will be acquiring Apex's assets and rehiring every employee, except senior management. We'll be implementing fair wage standards immediately. The 43 illegally terminated employees will be offered their jobs back with full back pay and promotions they were denied." "What about Sterling's personal assets?" "Frozen. The FBI will handle that. But I can tell you this, every penny he stole from minority employees will be returned, with interest." Sterling struggled against the handcuffs. "This is revenge. Vindictive revenge." Adrienne walked closer to him, close enough that only the nearest cameras could pick up her words. "No, Mr. Sterling, revenge would be destroying you in secret. This is justice, and the whole world is watching." She extended her hand to him, the same hand he'd refused 3 hours ago. "Last chance, Mr. Sterling. Shake my hand. Show the world you can change. Show them you're capable of basic human decency." Sterling looked at her hand. Brown. Steady. Offering him something he'd never given anyone. Grace. He spat at her feet. The cameras captured everything. The world saw everything. His last act of defiance was his final self-destruction. As federal agents dragged him away, Adrienne turned back to the cameras. Power isn't about who you refuse to acknowledge. It's about being undeniable. Today, we were undeniable. She walked toward the exit, Marcus beside her. Behind them, the Apex logo crashed to the lobby floor, shattering into 1,000 pieces. "You know he'll try to come back," Marcus warned. "No," Adrienne said, looking at the sun setting over Wall Street. "He won't." Her phone buzzed. 12 more companies with discrimination lawsuits wanting to settle. "What now?" Marcus asked. "Now, we rebuild. Better." The black fist pin caught the light one more time. Her father would have been proud. The federal courthouse steps looked like Judgment Day. Richard Sterling, the man who'd ruled Wall Street for 3 decades, stood in an orange jumpsuit where his Armani suit should be. His empire had lived for 60 years. It died in 4 hours and 18 minutes. Inside the emergency bankruptcy court, Judge Patricia Williams, a black woman Sterling had once called unqualified in a Wall Street Journal op-ed, presided over Apex Corporation's funeral. "Mr. Sterling," she began, her voice carrying the weight of poetic justice, "in my 30 years on the bench, I've never seen corporate malfeasance this extensively documented by you, in your own words." The prosecution presented their case like a symphony of destruction, email after email, video after video. 43 witness testimonies from former employees, each one a nail in Sterling's coffin. Keisha Williams, the employee Sterling had ordered fired, took the stand. "He told me I was too urban for client meetings. When I asked what that meant, he said, 'You know what you are.' James Park, a Korean analyst, denied promotion 7 times. He said Asians were good with numbers but lacked leadership presence. Then he promoted his nephew who'd failed the Series 7 exam twice. Maria Santos, the janitor who'd cleaned Sterling's office for 15 years. He once spilled coffee on my hand deliberately to show Japanese investors how well-trained his servants were. Each testimony triggered another sell-off. Apex stock flatlined at 0.73, down from 347 that morning. In financial terms, it was death. Sterling's lawyer attempted damage control. "Your Honor, my client built a company that employed thousands." "That discriminated against thousands," Judge Williams interrupted. "Continue." Meanwhile, 3 blocks away, Adrienne stood in Apex's former headquarters, now Catalyst Capital's newest acquisition. The hostile takeover had taken 6 minutes. The board, desperate to salvage anything, had sold for 7% of the morning's value. She walked through Sterling's former office, Marcus and Elena beside her. The wall of awards and photos, Sterling with presidents, with celebrities, with titans of industry, would be replaced tomorrow. "Ma'am," David's voice crackled through the phone. "Final numbers are in. Sterling's personal assets, all $2.3 billion, are frozen pending criminal investigation. His houses, his yacht, his art collection. Everything." "And the employees?" "Everyone rehired except the 43 executives complicit in discrimination. The janitors, security, and service staff are getting 40% raises, retroactive 3 years. Back in court, the FBI presented their final evidence, a recording from that morning, minutes before the handshake. Sterling in the bathroom, on the phone with William Hayes. "I don't care if she owns half of Manhattan. I won't shake that monkey's hand." The courtroom gasped. Sterling's lawyer put his head in his hands. Judge Williams had heard enough. "Richard Sterling, you are hereby held without bail pending trial. Charges include 847 counts of employment discrimination, 43 counts of wrongful termination, 267 counts of wage theft, 15 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of attempted assault." Captured on livestream. "This is a lynching!" Sterling screamed. The irony of his word choice wasn't lost on anyone. As they led him away, Sterling passed a TV showing the news. The headline read, Adrienne Carter named Forbes' most powerful woman in finance. He stopped walking. On screen, Adrienne stood where his office used to be, surrounded by the minority employees he'd terrorized. They were crying, laughing, free. "Turn it off," Sterling begged. The guard, a young black man Sterling had once refused to make eye contact with, shook his head. "No, sir. You need to watch this." The news showed the ripple effect. 12 other corporations had just announced emergency diversity audits. Congress was drafting the Sterling Act, making corporate discrimination a federal crime with mandatory jail time. Universities were pulling Sterling's honorary degrees. His son appeared on screen being interviewed by CNN. "My father was a racist who got what he deserved. I'm donating my entire inheritance to the Adrienne Carter Foundation for Economic Justice." Sterling's legs gave out. The guards had to drag him. At sunset, Adrienne stood on the roof of the former Apex building. The A from the old sign lay shattered on the street below. Workers were already installing the new letters. Catalyst. Elena Rodriguez joined her, camera off for once. "You destroyed him completely." "No," Adrienne corrected. "He destroyed himself. I just held up a mirror." "What happens when he gets out of prison?" Adrienne looked at the contract in her hand, the one with Clause 8. Sterling's signature still bold, still arrogant. "In 15 years, he'll be 73, broke, unemployable. No one will shake his hand, not because of his skin color, but because of his choices." Her phone rang. President Harrison himself. "Miss Carter, I'd like to discuss you joining my Economic Advisory Board." "I'd be honored, Mr. President." She hung up and touched the black fist pin one more time. Below them, Sterling's empire was being dismantled piece by piece. Above them, the stars were coming out. "Your father would be proud," Marcus said quietly. Adrienne smiled. "He always said the system was rigged. He just never imagined we'd be the ones holding the detonator." The city lights sparkled like justice. Sterling's world had ended not with a whimper, but with a $3.2 billion bang. 6 months after the handshake heard around the world, the Manhattan skyline looked different. The Catalyst Tower, formerly Apex, stood as a beacon, its lobby walls covered with photos of every employee, regardless of position or race. The janitors' portraits hung next to the executives. In Washington, Senator James Thompson stood before Congress. The Sterling Act passed unanimously today. Any corporation guilty of systemic discrimination now faces immediate federal intervention. The age of looking away is over. The law was nicknamed Adrienne's Clause on social media. Within hours of its passage, 2,000 companies announced emergency diversity audits. At Harvard Business School, Professor Michael taught a new mandatory course, The Apex Collapse, a case study in institutional racism. The final exam had one question. How many black executives did Sterling promote in 30 years? The answer was 0. In Detroit, Jerome Carter Community Center opened its doors. Adrienne had built it where her father's engineering shop once stood. The first student enrolled was Sterling's former janitor's daughter, full scholarship to MIT, sponsored by Catalyst Capital. The security footage from that morning played on the center's wall, not the refusal, but what came after. Adrienne walking away with dignity, the pin catching light, power choosing its moment. "My grandfather died thinking he was worthless," the girl told reporters. "Ms. Carter proved that wrong. We're not asking for handouts. We're demanding handshakes." Meanwhile, in federal prison, Sterling sat alone in the cafeteria. The black inmates wouldn't speak to him, not from hatred, but from indifference. He'd become invisible, irrelevant, the very fate he'd condemned others to. His former CFO, William Hayes, now whistleblower and witness for the prosecution, visited once. "They're studying you in business schools," William told him, as a cautionary tale. "The man who lost $3 billion to prejudice. That's your legacy." Sterling said nothing. There was nothing to say. Back at Catalyst Tower, the transformation was complete. The executive floor, once exclusively white and male, now looked like New York itself, diverse, vibrant, alive. Productivity was up 30%. Innovation metrics had doubled. The company Sterling said would fail under diversity quotas was now worth more than Apex ever was. Marcus Johnson, promoted to president, implemented the Everyone Eats policy, profits shared equally among all employees, from CEO to cafeteria staff. The janitors who'd once made $30,000 now earned $95,000 plus bonuses. Elena Rodriguez won a Pulitzer for her coverage. Her article's opening line became legendary. It took a black woman's extended hand to reveal how empty white supremacy's grip really was. But the real change wasn't in boardrooms or courtrooms. It was in break rooms and bathrooms where conversations shifted. A white middle manager in Chicago, watching Sterling's perp walk, told his team, "I need to apologize. I've been him, in smaller ways. Who haven't I been seeing?" A startup founder in Silicon Valley revised her hiring practices after realizing her entire team looked like her. "I don't want to be the next Sterling" became a common phrase in tech. The Adrienne effect spread globally. In London, Parliament passed the Corporate Equality Act. Tokyo's stock exchange required discrimination disclosures. Even Dubai's financial sector implemented bias training. On the anniversary of the handshake, Adrienne stood before the United Nations. Richard Sterling was not an anomaly. He was a symptom of systems that mistake homogeneity for harmony, that confuse privilege with merit. She paused, the black fist pin prominent on her lapel. But symptoms can be treated. Systems can be changed. Hands can be shaken. The assembly erupted in applause. Leaders from 40 nations stood. In his cell, Sterling watched on a small TV. The newscrawler read, "Adrienne Carter's net worth surpasses $10 billion, pledges half to economic justice initiatives." He turned it off and stared at his hands. The hands that had refused to shake. The hands that had signed his own destruction. Outside, a new generation was learning a different lesson. In classrooms from Harlem to Hong Kong, children studied the video. Teachers asked, "What's the cost of hatred?" The answer was written on every whiteboard, 3.2 billion, and counting. The black fist pin had become a symbol, not of revolution, but of revelation, of what happens when dignity meets documentation, when preparation meets prejudice. The world hadn't ended. It had just begun to change. 5 years later, Adrienne Carter stood at the United Nations Global Economic Forum. The black fist pin, now in the Smithsonian's permanent collection, had been replaced by something else. Her father's engineering ring, restored and worn with pride. "Jerome Carter designed bridges," she told the assembly. "He died believing he'd never build one." Today, the Carter Foundation has connected 10,000 minority entrepreneurs to Fortune 500 contracts. My father's bridge just took longer to complete. The statistics spoke louder than any speech. Workplace discrimination lawsuits down 70%. Minority executive representation up 400%. The Sterling warning posted in every corporate lobby. Discrimination cost one man everything. What will it cost you? Richard Sterling, released after serving 3 years, worked at a car wash in Newark. His supervisor was Keisha Williams, the woman he'd ordered fired. She'd hired him. "Everyone deserves a second chance," she'd said. "Even him." He took lunch breaks alone, eating sandwiches made by Maria Santos. She ran the food truck outside. She charged him exactly what she'd been underpaid, 40% less than everyone else. He never complained. He couldn't afford to. The documentary 4 Hours: The Apex Collapse won an Oscar. The final scene showed Sterling's unwashed hand scrubbing windshields, then Adrienne's manicured hand signing billion-dollar deals. The contrast needed no narration. But the real victory wasn't in Sterling's fall. It was in Marcus Johnson's daughter, starting Harvard Business School. In Elena Rodriguez's foundation, training citizen journalists to document discrimination. In the 43 fired employees now running their own companies. The Catalyst Tower's lobby displayed a new installation, a bronze sculpture of two hands shaking. Below it, a plaque. Respect has no color. Power has no prejudice. Justice has no patience. Adrienne's TED Talk ended with a question. How many Richard Sterlings are in your company? How many closed doors, refused handshakes, whispered slurs do you tolerate? How much is your silence worth? She looked directly at the camera. You've seen what one handshake can destroy. Imagine what one handshake can build. The screen faded to black. Then simple white text. Has discrimination affected your workplace? Share your story. Handshake justice. Change starts with documentation. Justice begins with courage. Type respect if you believe in equality. The revolution didn't need weapons, just witnesses.